I love shinies. Rings, necklaces, beads, bracelets, any kind of shiny jewelry, anything with a little charm on it, beads, stuff like that. I love it. Uh, and I don't just have a lot of it um, because I love it, but I like to include it in my games because it's very easy um, to add into a game, and it's very easy to sort of to give out sort of I'm going to say pretty things, but also useful things, not just pretty things for like a mage or a sorcerer or a holy symbol for a priest or a paladin. And although that certainly can be done as well, and I do that. But I'd like to just kind of throw things like that in there. Um, and sometimes they're magical, a lot of times they're not. But they, without any exception, any article of jewelry in my game you find can be enchanted. So something like this, I actually use this design for an amulet of wisdom, where it gives a bonus to wisdom. It's got the two little owls on it, and I happen to like it. I think it's cute, although I don't have much occasion to actually wear it myself. Um, but this is one of my favorite pieces. And this is what an amulet of wisdom would look like in my game. I guess this one could be a +2, and maybe just a single owl could be +1. Uh, this ring, I like. It's not very expensive. It's just really like shiny plastic and then a glass stone in the center. That's made to look like a sapphire or some other blue gemstone. Um, maybe like crystallized zoisite, I think, is blue or can be blue. Or maybe that's yellow. Um, but this one, I used this design in a game, and the ring had powers itself, but it was worn by someone. I think they wore it on their pinky, kind of like this. The ring's a little too small for me. It was worn on the pinky, and when they would cast a spell, it actually caused a reaction with the gem in the ring that held some sort of magical property, um, and amplified the spell. Um, uh, uh, the ring did end up exploding at one point, and just magic energy went everywhere. Uh, burned a bunch of burned the user and really messed up a bunch of other people in the party. Um, but and it wasn't really something that was done to fix the fact that the ring was sort of a the ring was very or actually kind of a broken piece of treasure that I put in. But I was willing to let it be a broken piece. The fact that that a spell backfired and caused the ring to explode, that was just sheer dumb luck, I guess, um, or bad luck for the person who had the ring. Um, I have lots of rings. Um, this is a set of earrings, or part of a set of earrings. It's got a few charms. There's a dragonfly. And then there's this little spirally wheel thing. And this sort of enameled orange oval in the background. My mom and her sisters all had earrings similar to this. And I got a pair too. I like earrings that have decorative pieces like this. Well, on the one hand, it gives me something that I can really describe for my players when I put it in. But it also just looks pretty. This is a bracelet that I frequently wear myself. I think it's got like a feng shui coin on it or something. You can't really see you're not gonna really see the detail on it. There's some Chinese writing on this side of the coin. And then on this side of the coin, there's a dragon and a phoenix. I wear it a lot. I actually use this sort of like a chain of prayer beads in meditation. And I'll go ahead and put this back on. Let's see. What else is there? Oh, there's this necklace that I'm currently wearing. These are a little more elegant looking, I think. Certainly this one is. This one, my husband got for me the first Christmas after we started dating. Actually, it was our first Christmas together as a couple. This was this necklace, and it came as part of a set. With this necklace. So when they sit together, they look something like this. These, I gave out necklaces that look like these. They didn't really do anything. They were really just treasure. This was also a gift that Christmas from my husband. And it showed up in my wedding photos if you've seen them on Facebook. It's a hair clip. It opens like this, and it's got these two little comb things, and it sort of clips your hair together, holds it back away from your face. It doesn't hold my hair back away from my face because my hair is far too thick for that. But again, the level of detail on this, you can see here on the side, it's not just the butterfly, there's some flowers that have little red stones inside as well. And then of course there's just the detail of the butterfly. This is another more elegant piece. Had something like this before. When these stones came up. Had something like this in a game before, and that that really, it was just assumed to be a normal piece of really elegant jewelry, um, until one of the characters decided to wear it, and discovered it wasn't just a piece of jewelry, it was actually cursed. Pretty things can be dangerous too. They don't all have to give some kind of bonus, or advantage to the players. They can be a detriment to them as well. Especially if you have people who either don't take detect magic even though they get it, or have detect magic but don't use it. And it's not really a way of punishing them, it's more like a way of saying, oh well, yeah, I threw this in there and I figured you would cast detect magic on it, but you didn't, and now your party member is cursed. What are you going to do about that? Let's see, what else do I have in here? I have this pendant. This is Adam's, actually. Dragon. There's the missing stone. I can probably get that back in. A watch. Pretty watch. I have, this one's Adam's. I have a matching one. Yeah. I'm not gonna say anything about that. This is one of my favorite necklaces. It's really just a bunch of polished little stones. There's some green ones, some red ones, some blue ones. Probably, they're all probably amethyst or variants of quartz. And they're on this, like, they're strung together on this like hemp cord. And then there's a clasp here in the back for some reason. I don't know why. That easily would go over most people's heads. I mean, it's pretty large. This is a good example of what I would call tribal jewelry. Beads, or different colored beads, or stone beads, or seashells. This is almost an example of tribal jewelry. I'm almost finished with it. The excess string here needs to be trimmed, and the knots need to be sealed with wax. But it's got the hemp cord, like you would see with some of the tribal jewelry, and the beads too. This charm here actually is a locket. It opens up. I'm not really sure. I don't think I've ever thrown a locket in any of my games. I've had some characters, or some players who've made characters that have a locket that has something in it that's of some special significance to them, or some meaning to them. But one thing I have discovered is that the more detail I put in these sort of random bits of treasure, like this is a sterling silver I think it's a belt buckle. Could be wrong. There's got the Irish claddagh on it, if you can see that. Or claddagh? I don't know. No idea how to pronounce it. Yeah, but I mean, just even something like this, it's dirty, it's tarnished, it's got this little embellishment on it, but the more detail uh, that I put into it personally, um, it seems like the more willing the players are to hang on to it and think that it is something very cool and think that it is something very neat, even if it doesn't really give them much of a bonus or any bonus at all. Like this ring. Um, and it's really just a piece of costume jewelry. You can see there's an Avon logo on the inside of it. But I love the sort of detailed scroll work on it. I don't know if you can see that very well. But I love the detailed scroll work on it and the way it almost looks like there's etching on it. Even though there's not. And this is a piece. Another piece. Almost every piece of jewelry that ends up in a game of mine, it's something that I actually own or have owned at one point in time. I had a really cool ring I wanted to show, but I don't seem to be able to find it. And it might be in a completely different jewelry box altogether. Even something like this, an old coin on a chain. It's not, this isn't something I hand out. It might be something that you find on someone's person, though. A dead body. That would have some special meaning to them. Maybe a coin from their hometown, or part of the first theft a rogue ever made. This happens to be a buffalo nickel from 1927. But the more detail I put into these little trinkets, earrings, rings, jewelry, bracelets, things like that, the more detail I put into it, the more likely my players are to hang on to it. And some of them have even paid to have things enchanted. Something like this. This is just a little piercing stud. You can find it at places that do ear piercing in most malls, or something like it anyway. But I have had most players, when they find something really neat that they think is really neat that I've thrown in with loot, they will hang on to it, and they will actually pay to have it enchanted if they can't enchant it themselves, and that is not something that I make inexpensive. You have to be in a rather large city in order to even be able to find a shop or a wizard or incapable of enchanting something like this. And once it's enchanted and the enchantment can't be removed, it can't be replaced with something else. So you really have to, I really, sort of make them kind of think ahead if it's something that they really want or not. None of them have ever pawned, or none of them have ever turned around and pawned anything that they have had enchanted. Or or giving it up for any reason. Um, and I kind of think maybe it's because they like the piece. A little too much to give it up. There's a ringing. I think this might be it, and not the one I showed earlier. There was a similar ring that had I had an opal in the center. That actually belonged to a player character who died over the course of one of my games. And he was in possession of this ring at the time that he died, and he had purchased it with the intent of giving it to one of the other player characters to propose to her with. When he died, she was very, very deeply affected by his death, and actually she held on to this and wore it, as though he actually had proposed to her, which I thought just spoke volumes about the love that those two characters had for each other. When you're putting this sort of random stuff together, I like to hide the magical stuff in with non-magical stuff. So probably maybe a little case like this for a modern game, something a little fancier, maybe a proper jewelry box for a more fantasy game. Or for a fantasy game. But in doing that, I mean, it's so easy to just empty out the contents of this and divide it up later on. But I don't really put too much in there that would be very valuable. A lot of it is very cheap thing, like a brass ring, or a bronze ring maybe, or I think I've actually had tin rings in one of them, and then I'll have maybe a beautiful, brilliant silver diamond ring that has absolutely nothing magical to it. It just looks valuable, and the tin rings, or the set of tin rings, will be the ones that have the magic property to them. There actually is a set of rings that you can use to send messages to. If one person has the other ring, you can send a message to them. I think it might be telepathically. Actually telepathically in the rules. I don't know if it is or not. That's sort of how I do it. You can speak to that person over long distances. And I have always used that as a telepathic means of communication. I've never used it as a sort of magical message letter sending ring, or you speak aloud and they can somehow hear you. It's always been telepathic for me. it makes things a little easier to have a private conversation with someone, which I think is the main purpose of having those rings. Well, that has been detrimental because there have been people who have figured out what those rings are and kept them, and actually turned against the other party members in sort of a plotted coup. That was a fun game. But I don't throw a lot of magic items in my games, even if you can go out and buy them. Even in a very high magic setting game, you aren't going to come across a lot of magical armor or weapons. It's almost all jewelry. I don't want to say I don't really believe in magic weapons, but I don't really find them that interesting. The closest thing to a magic weapon I have ever had was a game that my group and I had decided at the time. We had just finished a very heavy, very dark game, and we wanted to blow off some steam, and so I just ran a really sort of a series of short one-shot adventures, just to blow off steam, and they were all very very much humor games, and not really fantasy games or horror games or anything dark. Just kind of light and fluffy and really humor for the sake of humor, and kind of lightening the mood up a bit. There was a mop. This mop was called Excalibur. And it wasn't an ordinary mop. It had actually been, at one point in time, an enchanted mop that had sort of almost a free will. It was, of course, one of the mops that the Sorcerer's Apprentice enchanted to clean up a mess. And that the sorcerer later had to disenchant when things got out of hand. But this mop retained a little bit of that will. And it didn't really come into play too much, except if you picked it up and tried to use it as a weapon. Then you would find yourself somehow able to defend yourself with the mop as though you were proficient with a quarterstaff. And that's the closest thing to a magic weapon I've ever had. And it was really, just for the sake of humor, my most favorite magic item I have ever put into a game ever was from that same series of games, and they were fuzzy pink bunny slippers of +2 agility. I called them +2 agility. It's dexterity. They were +2 dexterity. With +2 dexterity, but they're fuzzy pink slippers. And the person who got them actually wore them for the rest of the game, which I thought was even more fun than throwing them in there for giggles. But part of why I made this video is what I'm sort of wondering, what kind of magic items do you like to put into your games? Do you like to put in rings and trinkets? Do you like to put in weapons? Do you like to put in armor? Or do you really not like to put in magic items? Do you just like to sort of put in items that players can have enchanted? Um, I'm really interested to see what some people say about this one.